Welcome to On the Horn. I'm Steve-O, your host, and on this show, I will be interviewing some of my favorite nerds about their own particular flavor of nerdiness and the lengths that they go to celebrate it.
Okay. All right. Commander Cody Boyce, how you doing, man?
What's up, guys, man? It's been a long time since we've chatted.
It has. It's been too long, I would say. Some would say.
Oh, indeed.
Busy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's Scott Thurlow, who's going to be listening in as well.
I've been chiming in, but not too much. So
it's creeping in the back.
Gigantic name right there.
Yep. So now I'll let you take it away, Steve-O and Cody.
Thank you, sir. So we're here with Cody Boyce, as I just said, the runner of, co-host, I guess, of the Rogue Squadron podcast. And you can find him at all these other fine places up behind me. We're just going to leave that up the entire time because set up a little whiteboard for you, for everybody listening in. But, unless you're living under a rock, everybody knows that the Last Jedi just came out. So after a couple weeks, I wanted to do a little rundown with the guy who's a little bit of an authority on Star Wars stuff.
No, that's too much. Not authority.
So the guy who, has this background of Darth Vader at Stormtroopers at a Star Wars party.
That's the guy who threw his own Star Wars party with The Last Jedi.
Hey, man. We just like to drink beer and enjoy Star Wars.
I'm saying it's not cool. I'm saying that maybe you are qualified to be an authority is all.
Go on. There we go.
So we all know that there's a bunch of indecision about whether or not Star Wars is a good movie, right? Or the new Star Wars is a good movie. I come down on the side, I actually liked it a lot. And I actually saw it again the second time, and I liked it even better the second time I saw it. I don't know, what you think? Yeah,
it was exactly the same thing. Like, we walked out of the theater the first night, like, what the fuck did we just watch? Like, that's not Star Wars. Like, what happened? Like, the nipple milk and Chuck in the light, like all the usual complaints that I'm sure people have heard like 100 times, but all these things that were completely unexpected. And of course Snoke, and of course Rey's parents, but we walked out of the theater like, what the hell just happened? That was not Star Wars. I don't know how we feel about that, but we hesitated, or we prevented ourselves from recording anything or talking about the movie until we saw it again, which I think was a mistake that we've done in the past. Or like me especially, I'll watch a movie and just be, oh, this is my favorite movie ever. Like a lot of the Marvel movies, I'll watch like best thing I've ever seen, 10 out of 10. Well, and then I'll watch it again, it's like, okay, wasn't that good? So I have to like restrain myself from getting too excited or getting too pissed. So we waited and saw it a second time before we actually reviewed it. But yeah, it was confusing as hell, to say the least, the very first time.
Yeah, I kind of felt a little bit the same way, but and I do exactly the same thing. But we record usually right after we watch a movie, so we do our reviews without really letting it sink in too much. Every once in a while, we say some silly things that I think about later, and I'm like, that's not true. But coming down to this one, it was like I needed to digest it a little bit because it wasn't the Star Wars that I was used to, and where like Force Awakens was the Star Wars that I was used to, because it was, so much of it was kind of a retread of New Hope, to an extent. I know you probably have something to say about that.
It's just funny because that was the first time we talked on mic about Star Wars was me in rabid defense of Force Awakens. So I love
Force Awakens.
Yeah. So I was actually curious. I'm excited that we're recording. I was curious to hear your thoughts about Last Jedi after I know how you guys felt about Force Awakens and everything.
So
let me jump in real quick. Just
jump in.
Put on our site, Cody. I wrote up a little article that sort of not a review per se, but my own theory of what I thought The Last Jedi was saying to the Star Wars fans about themselves, which I think Steve-O might sort of integrate that into what he's going to say. But that's like the most interesting to me that I got out of it. So
100%, almost to a fault.
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, I absolutely was gonna touch on that. I enjoyed Last Jedi quite a bit. But what I liked the most about it, I think, was, and I have my nitpicks and things like that.
Of course,
the movie as well.
Yeah,
but I think what I liked the most about it was the fact that it was willing to deviate so much from what a Star Wars movie is, while kind of sticking true to like what made Empire really good. Like it had the same or similar like overtones without being the same plot, And I think that's something that is tough to do, and I think it did it pretty well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What did you think? What was your like overall impression of it?
So yeah, after the dust settled, the overall impression was, well, there's a lot of feelings. There's a lot of thoughts. Obviously, I like it. I like it more every time I see it. It's a little bit better, which I think is a good thing. At first, I was like, well, why do I have to watch a movie like 3 times before I like it? Is that a bad sign? Like, where's the first impression? But yeah. It's aging very well. I've seen it 4 times, and it gets better every time. And like the last time I watched it, I was just giddy at parts. Like the throne room scene was making me so, I was like getting choked up because it was just so epic. So that's a good sign. But I think Ryan made a great film, but he really went out of the way to make a point to fans. And like Scott said, yeah, well, like Scott said, like make a point to fans are their own worst enemy, and he's kind of he's shoving that right in our faces, but almost to a fault, because I think he took it a little too far. Like,
you think so?
The fact that Luke threw the lightsaber of his father, that's such an epic moment, and he just chucked it casually over his shoulder. Like, I get the point. Like, there's all this buildup about the lightsaber. Everyone wants to know, like, what's he going to do when he finds it? Is Rey going to keep it? What's going to happen? Is Luke going to use it? Blah, blah, blah. And then he just chucks it. And I get that, because Ryan's trying to say, like, stop doing all this crazy theorizing about things. Sometimes you just need to enjoy the movie. Okay, sure. But it just didn't sit well.
It was when I first saw that scene, it bugged me that they took that scene that was supposed to be this entire build-up for 2 years and made it into a joke.
Right.
But the more I think about it, the more that ties into what Luke has become, and that's exactly what he wanted to show right off the bat. Was like, hey, none of this is going to go the way you think it is.
Right.
And he says that, and he says that in the text as well later. But that's, again, as Scott was saying, that's what Ryan was saying, or that's what he was saying with this entire movie was, look, I know you're expecting a specific thing, especially because of how similar Force Awakens and New Hope were.
Yeah.
You're expecting this to be more similar to Empire, and it's just not going to be. So, like, prepare for it right now, But that's another scene where I didn't like it at first. I did not like that scene, and then the second time I saw it, I was like, all right, this is all right. It's not great, but it's all right.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I'm feeling that way about a lot of it, but not that. I'm never going to get over that. That's not going to change for me. The importance and the impact of him getting that lightsaber back, I think is too huge for him to casually make a joke about it.
Yeah, I mean, he never actually, in real life, picks it up again, right?
No, because Rey tries to hand it to him. He's trying to get Rey to stay, and she's like, "Here's the saber. Go be the hero." And he doesn't want it. And
the only time, you do see him with it again at the end, but it's the Force projection of him. So, like, I don't know. I think that's a really interesting way of getting that lightsaber back into his hands without actually bringing it back into his hands.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. Like, I know from filmmaking wise, it's a visual cue for the audience to cue into something's not right. Like, obviously that's not actually Luke, because that saber's destroyed. Right. But it just was weird with him having it after he so carelessly chucked it over his shoulder. And I just really wish he would have had the green lightsaber, honestly. After all that.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I was trying to figure out if I could pick up like the deeper implications than just like kind of the surface. Obviously he has his father's lightsaber back again at the end, and like as a force protection, but like,
right.
There is something that's trying to be said there about the generations that are going through like the Star Wars at the moment, and like have been in there in the past, and kind of letting go of your legacy and things like that. So,
trying to,
well, that's like his last hurrah. Like he is buying time for the rebels, and then he can feel like he did something to help them, and then he just evaporates.
Just evaporates. Well, and he made peace with. He didn't make peace with Kylo, but he like confronted him,
right?
And at least overcame that like ghost that was haunting him the whole time that he was. The whole reason that he left to go to Octo in the first place.
Yeah, and that's huge as well, of course. But yeah, I mean, it's. I think I keep going back and I keep finding little things that I really like about, especially about Luke, in this. I think that the casino scene was a little over long, or the casino section was a little over long.
Yeah,
and I wasn't the hugest fan of Rose, but she turned out to be all right.
Everyone's 50-50 on her, man.
Yeah.
It's love or hate. There's no middle ground when it comes to Rose in this movie.
Yeah, I'm on the hate side a little bit, but I don't know. She just seemed like she could have been written better, and that character could have acted a bit better as well.
She was okay. I've never been a huge fan of like the good guys that are just good guys because they're good guys.
Yeah.
Like that's why I never used to like I never really liked Luke until this movie. It's like now the first time I'm actually really, really, really liking Luke Skywalker. Because he has there's some consequences to what he did and what he's trying to do. Mm-hmm. Like there's conflict there, which usually, you don't really see. He's like, my aunt and uncle burned up. I'm going to do this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is, I think the main push of this movie, and this is something I talked about in our review when we did it, is the idea of kind of a graying of the lines between dark side and light side. And I think that's where it ultimately, if it's going to end this story that's being told right now, well, I think that's ultimately where they have to go.
Right.
It's like Kylo and Rey have to end up somewhere in the middle, rejecting the Jedi and rejecting the Sith to an extent, But I don't know. You got any thoughts on that? Do you agree, or do you think that's?
Well, I was excited that it seemed like we were going to get a lot of gray, blurred lines throughout the movie. Mm-hmm. It's called The Last Jedi. You think the Jedi are going to end. Luke says it's time for the Jedi to end. We're waiting for the Jedi to end. And all this build up, and then Luke finally confronts Kylo and says, I will not be the last Jedi. Which I get, I understand, and it's cool because of how he did it with the Force projection. And, that was just it's a cool new Force power, and that was a really unique thing for Luke to do instead of just show up in person. And it harkens to his character and where he is while he's on Octo, the fact that he still stays there, but does what he needs to do to get in the fight and to kind of, finalize things with his past with Kylo. But at the end of the day, I'm like, man, you were this close to doing something huge with ending the Jedi altogether. And then at the end, of course, you came back. There was a build up towards the end of the movie. It was the Canto Bite thing wasn't that good. And the stampede drove me nuts. I thought that was stupid. And then what else was after that was driving me crazy? Oh, I think it was Finn was about to sacrifice himself in this epic moment, and it keeps zooming in on his face, and it's really emotional. They're getting some of that Order 66 style music in there, he's about to do the ultimate sacrifice for the Resistance, and then they ruin that at the last minute, and then Luke's is confronting Kylo. I'm like, the Jedi are finally over, and then again they just totally wash that at the last minute too. So I get it, but it's not my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, actually, that moment with Finn, I really wanted him to sacrifice himself, and I wanted I think that's part of the reason I don't like Rose's character. Because she saved him there. I mean, I guess that makes sense for her.
She comes zooming in like a psychopath. Honestly, that shot, I watch it whenever I go back, and she looks maniacal, like Cruella de Vil in her fucking car when she's like she's chasing Finn down and knocks him out of the
way. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there. But yeah, when you mentioned the stampede scene, it reminded me of that scene from Jumanji, where like all the animals are stampeding through houses and shit. Yeah, I was like, yes, this is weird.
I think the whole. I don't hate the idea of Canto Bight. I just think it's the whole sequence of it, and ending with the stampede is kind of what ruins it for me. Like, it's a cool concept. The casino planet's a good idea. The whole thing where they're trying to find a code breaker and they end up finding somebody else, and he works out almost anyways. I like that. I like DJ's character. And then they just end with the stampede thing, and just like kind of felt out of nowhere. Super random. Why are they rescuing the horses but no other animals? Meanwhile, Luke is skewering fish and getting milk from walruses and stuff. Like, it was just kind of not a good end, I think, to the Canto Bight sequence. But yeah, no stampedes.
Yeah, it was very, very weird. The entire casino part of this movie, I think, felt like it was just way too long. Because it was fully a quarter of the movie was like them being there, like in jail and finding DJ and who I thought that character was great, by the way.
He's my favorite of the new characters in this movie. He's my favorite. I
was going to say he might have been my favorite, or he definitely was my favorite new character, and might have been one of my favorite characters in this movie. Like, all time. I loved him, and I loved his personification of like what we were just talking about, like the gray. That I feel like the kind of the universe is going towards in terms of that Star Wars universe. And his last line is so epic when he's like, what does he say? He's like, there'll be more wars to fight or whatever. Today you're shooting them. But today they're shooting you. Tomorrow you're shooting them.
Right.
And he goes, yeah, you're wrong. And he says, maybe. And then just turns around and walks away.
Perfect.
Like, it's the best.
It's perfect.
It's the best. Yeah.
Well, it's just kind of what Han did at the end of 4. Took money and run. He didn't betray anybody, but just that scene when they pushed all the money out in those little crates on the cart, and he just like smacks it, and they send it back to his ship. Thought that was sweet. Harkens back. No, DJ's awesome. I want to know. I want to know more about him. I love how he portrayed that character. The stutter and everything was just perfect.
Yeah. Well, Benicio del Toro is a great actor as well. Like, on top of that, he's done a lot of other good work. So, where do you think this one ranks in your Star Wars canon? How high up do you think it goes? You've got a strange list too.
I do.
Or not strange. You have a list that not many other people would even come close to having.
Well, and one keeps climbing my list too. People seem to be pretty surprised about that. One gets higher and higher on this. Yeah, I don't know. It's in the top half for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where I'd place it. I was toying around with 7, still my favorite. 7 still up top. So I was thinking maybe like 7, then 5, and then 8. I don't know, but it changes on seasons, changes on like Last Jedi. Once I see it 10 times, I might get sick of it for a few months, and then it'll drop down my list. And like I said, I've been watching episode 1 a lot in the last half of 2016 or 2017. So that one is up there, but it changes all the time, man. But I think it's definitely in the top half.
Yeah.
And I think it will continue to climb as time goes on.
Yeah, I think much like when Empire came out, I think it's going to
which I wouldn't know anything about because that was before I was born.
Yeah. Well, we posted that thing that was basically comparing how people reacted to Empire and
yes.
Yeah, and I just love that. It was so perfect for
that was awesome.
How people were. Maybe I'll try and find it and post it with the show notes on this or something. But
people are freaking out, man.
Yeah. That's the other thing. People are going so crazy over this. If you don't like it, fine. But like, everyone's trying. There's a petition to have it taken out of the Star Wars canon, and like all this madness.
Absurd.
It's insane.
I almost said worried. I'm not worried, but I was actually curious as to what your guys, like what your thoughts were going to be after this. If you were on the whole hate train and signing the petition and never seen it again and boycotting it because you hated it. Not because I think you guys would do that, but just based on your reactions to 7. Because I feel like, I don't know. The hate with 7, I thought that was some of the biggest divisiveness we've seen in Star Wars fandom since the prequels came out. I did not anticipate that Last Jedi splitting things even more than 7 did, but I didn't expect this at all. It's ridiculous, and I've just been completely staying out of all not arguing. I'm talking about it on the show, but I'm not tweeting or anything about it.
I was just going to ask that if you have gotten into anything with any of the, because like you base your entire show around Star Wars, so like I feel like you must have at least had some people come at you with stuff like that.
Yeah, I've had some friends or like other podcasters that don't do a Star Wars show, but they still are into the movies. And it tends to be a lot of older people actually too. When I say older, I just mean people that were kids when the originals came out, and they were just like, "That was the worst Star Wars movie I've ever seen. It was worse than Jar Jar Binks."
Well,
I was like, what are you talking about?
A funny story. We have our 4th founding member, Chris, was here for the review that we did, and he is in that age group. So he went to see Star Wars when it was called Star Wars in theaters, and he did not like this movie. He gave it a 4 out of 10.
Oh man.
He did not like it. I spent the entire episode trying to convince him to give it a higher score. But yeah, so that's exactly the type of fan that like I don't really understand. I think he's just precious about what Star Wars like has to be, Yeah,
but that's the problem. And this is what Luke says about the Force is like, Star Wars doesn't belong to you.
Yeah.
Like we all have an idea of what it is, you know what I mean? But that's another thing that Ryan put in the movie that was Luke was talking about the Force, but it was directed like at fandom.
Exactly, 100%. I pointed that out in my article. Like I said, like it's so obvious, right? That's what he's doing. But that's what I kind of liked about it. Like he's both saying it within the story of the film and to the fans themselves, like more or less.
Yeah,
and exactly. I really enjoyed that part of it. So
right,
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I would have if you didn't. But it's so obvious, I think, to us at least.
Well, it's hard to accept that too because when there is a lot of Star Wars content, the movies only come out once a year. There's all this other stuff that revolves around them, and you could get. I mean, we are like super deep into Old Republic and stuff, but we're never going to see a movie about that. But does that mean I hate all the new movies because they're not Old Republic? Doesn't make any sense. At the end of the day, you have to realize that it's a group of. I know Disney. People think Disney's like this evil, megalomaniacal corporation that is going to own the entire world soon. But at the end of the day, it's a group of creative people making their vision for what they think is the best story and characters.
Yeah, all those evil megalomaniacal people hire very creative people to make a good story, and they want to make that story good.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to like let go and let the story unfold. That's what the thing that people like. Don't you realize that that's what like Lucas did? It's like he made the story that he wanted to make, regardless of what everybody was saying. He wasn't trying to make stuff that the fans might like. He was just making his thing.
Yeah, especially in the originals, the prequels. I know he had plans for them for a very long time, but and you probably know more about this than I do. But like, was how close was? Because there are a lot of books from that time period before the movies came out, I think. And do you know how close the prequels were to like his original vision of what it was supposed to be?
I don't know offhand, but I'd be really interested to read something about that. I did stumble across something about, I think it was like a prologue to, I think it was like a prologue to the novelization of A New Hope. And it was written back like after the movie came out in the late 70s. And it actually mentioned things like the Galactic Republic and the Senate and Chancellor Palpatine. And it was naming off some of these things that we actually see come up in the prequels. So I don't know how detailed it was. But yeah, I think that's one thing that people need to remember is that George did his thing with the prequels. And I think that's, well, I guess we're seeing the same thing with Disney doing their thing for Star Wars, is that it's going to split everybody in half, just like the prequels did. But you just have to respect that they're not yielding because you got a petition with 10,000 signatures.
You know what? I really do not, and we did talk about this the first time, and I really do not. I know you like the prequels a lot better than I do. I don't like them at all. But I would never in a million years say that they should be taken out of the Star Wars canon.
Yeah, just delete them and waste that, $500 million and just go make them again. That's so silly.
Well, there's so many series that do that now, and they just reboot their series, and it's like, oh, the other one never existed at this point, basically. Mm-hmm. And I really hope that Star Wars doesn't go that route. I think at this point it'd be tough. They're 8 movies or 9 movies in, about to be 10 next year, and
they did do that with some of the expanded stuff. That was some outrage too. Before 7 even came out, was they made a lot of old stuff uncanon, and that was the first time that my camera keeps fucking switching. It's fucking weird. Keeps making me red. Sorry, it's distracting me. That's one thing that really sparked a lot of BS too. Before 7 even came out, was that old stories that people loved, they made those uncanon. So now they don't exist, even though the books are still out there.
Right.
Which apparently the comic stuff has done that time and time again over the past 100 years. So it's the first time for Star Wars. So it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's comics are known for that. The old retcon.
Right.
And they've been doing that. How many times have all of the superheroes in the Marvel universe died and come back?
And even in the past 15 years, how many times have we seen a Batman, or 30 years, I should say? How many times have we seen a Batman origin story?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Every time a new writer gets his hands on the thing.
Over and over and over again.
Yep. But I guess that's kind of how things work in comics, and I guess that just translates over to comics movies, so you're gonna keep seeing Batman every time they want to do a new Batman story. I think it's about time to reboot the DC universe again at this point.
It's time for the Batman to end, is that what you're saying?
God.
So I take it what you didn't like Justice League?
Justice League was okay, like a soft okay, and that is the second best movie they've produced since the Batman
vs Superman.
Yeah, well, Batman vs Superman was horrendous. I saw Suicide Squad in the movie. It was terrible. You liked Batman vs Superman?
Yes, it's fucking awesome.
Terrible movie. Terrible.
Maybe it's because I don't know anything about the actual Batman comics, so I didn't have any baggage.
I'm not even trying to be precious about it. It was just so poorly paced, in my opinion. Doomsday, I guess this does go back to knowing a little bit about the characters, but in the comics, Doomsday kills Superman, which does in this movie too. Spoilers. Right. You usually say spoilers before you say the spoiler. Shit. All right.
It's been out for what? Almost 3 years.
It's been long enough for that movie, I would say. Go on.
But he doesn't show up. The main bad guy that fucking kills Superman doesn't show up till the last quarter of the movie.
It's okay.
It's
Snoke dies in Last Jedi. It's okay.
Snoke does die, but where that is their they kill him to prove a point. Seems like they bring in Doomsday because Zack Snyder wanted to do a lot of flashy camera shit in the beginning of the movie, and I don't know. His style kind of bugs me in general. I think it might be my problem with Zack Snyder more than anything.
Yeah, I feel a lot of that, just like Rose, I feel like people are 50-50 on that shit with Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
Like it's love or hate. I love Batman vs Superman. It's like between that or Wonder Woman for my favorite DC movie.
Wonder Woman is by far my favorite. I really liked Wonder Woman. Justice League was okay.
Justice League was another one that was better the second time.
Yeah, I do want to watch it again, just to see kind of how it feels on the second watch, you know.
Yeah.
But
we don't have to go balls deep into, you know, Batman vs Superman right now. If you
That's true.
If you want to stay in Star Wars train.
Well, I guess let's talk about that. Like, what do you think the legacy of The Last Jedi is going to be when it all comes down? Like, do you think this is going to be an Empire-like movie in terms of like how it affects the fandom? You know, because that one is viewed like, you know, 40 years on or 30 years on or whatever, as like this incredible piece of art, like piece of work, you know?
Right. Yeah, I think Last Jedi is a turning point in Star Wars. I think Disney buying it was a big event, but it didn't really shift until just now with Last Jedi. Because obviously that's the biggest criticism about Episode 7 is that it's just like 4. I understand the parallels, but it's still its own new thing, kind of soft rebooting Star Wars. And that's kind of why they did that, and I get it. But it played safe. And even Rogue One being the first spin-off movie, but hey, it takes place a week before 4, so it's all the stuff that you like from Episode 4. That's playing it very safe as well. And this is the first one where they just really went the other direction. And Ryan had almost complete control and did almost whatever he wanted and threw some wacky shit in there and made some big changes. And I think this is a big turning point as things move forward. You know, if we get a 10, 11, and 12, you know, how crazy is that going to be? It might not be like the originals at all because we're on this different trajectory now. And Ryan's trilogy that we know that we're going to be getting. Who knows what the hell that is going to be? But I think people are going to like 9 a lot more as it goes on. Like I said, I think it ages well. But yeah, it's a big shift, man.
Yeah. It is going to be. It is like there's so much that there's no coming back from at this point that happened in this movie, and like you said, that's not exactly something that's happened since, since the original trilogy.
Right.
As far as like going past where the original trilogy left us off, you know, you had the prequels, they set up the original trilogy. You had Force Awakens, which you like you said was kind of this. It just kind of like played it safe, and Rogue One was cool. Rogue One took a lot of chances, but didn't really change anything about the universe. It was like prequels in that way, and it was setting up something that was about to happen in the original trilogy.
Yeah. It took chances in terms of like all the main guys died at the end.
Yeah.
That's a awesome chance, but that is pretty much the only chance. And Vader slaughtering everyone in that hallway that's pretty pretty like PG-13. It is. That's pretty PG-13 for Star Wars. Like those are the two big risks or chances that movie took. Otherwise, it's all X-Wings and TIE fighters. And the Death Star's there and Tarkin's there. And like, it's literally everything that people loved from the original Star Wars. That's the typical, that's like 100% fan service movie.
Right.
150% fan service movie. Which is fine. I mean, it was fun. It was awesome. But as far as it being better than 7 and 8, which are actually telling new stories and, you know, going these crazy directions and taking, I guess I got to stop saying risks. It's like them saying fucking spark in episode 8. Say spark 100,000 fucking times in that movie.
You should say instead of taking risks, they're taking sparks and then combine the two into a phrase.
Yes. Last Jedi is the spark that will turn Star Wars in a new direction. So I think it's a shift. I think it's a major shift, man. I'm excited for what we're about to see, and we have almost no info about what's coming up. So as far as what's going to happen in 9 or if 10, 11, and 12 are even going to be made. So who knows where this thing's going to go, man? They kind of got an open book right now.
Yeah, I actually like how under their hat Disney has kept everything about these movies so far.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know at all what to expect going into the theater to see Last Jedi, and I mean, I had an idea from the trailers, but that kind of all got turned on its head as soon as you stepped in, and that great opening battle scene. But then you get to Luke and Rey on the island, and that was just completely unlike what I expected from.
Okay, good. I was wondering where you were going to go with that.
Yeah. But I loved it. I loved the island, but it was also not what I thought was going to happen. And from what he says in the he says it in the trailer.
Of course, yeah.
Didn't go the way you thought.
Yeah,
of course,
not going to go the way you think.
Yeah, which is good.
I guess Scott has a question he'd like me to bring up to you, which is actually a good question, and I think you can see this as well. But he wants us to discuss, or he wants to hear your take, I guess, on the EA and Battlefront thing that's going on here. I know you've been playing it.
I've been playing a lot of it.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
So
that's how I open that's how I open every argument with Battlefront. It's a hell of a lot of fun, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. I guess I would say mainly if you're a Star Wars fan. So the game has issues. Mainly revolved around level progression, customization, classes, variety in like matches and things like that. Like this, like as a mainly a multiplayer game, and has a lot of issues, like basic stuff that I don't know how EA fucking forgot.
Sorry, those are big issues for having an MMO style game. So like the thing is, I only played the beta, and then the shitstorm of the controversy and so forth hit. So you're right. It was super fun until you figured out that they fucked up all those angles of it, and then sort of like fell apart. But the core of it seemed like a really awesome Star Wars game in general.
Yeah,
it's just disappointing that they decided to do that, and it kind of like fucked everyone over. And that is the petition I would sign to say, "Fuck you, EA." Like,
there is one going around to obviously not to like cancel the game or anything, but to remove their exclusive license for Star Wars games.
Yeah, exactly.
Which it's 100%. Yeah, because if they knew that Bethesda was about to make a kick-ass Star Wars game, they would actually have to like get on their shit. I think it would help a lot. So, yeah, there's basic components of a multiplayer game that are really lacking. The loading times are terrible. Matchmaking is really, really terrible. The lack of options with game modes and maps is like they need to start putting out DLC once a month at a minimum. Because we're already getting to the point, we were playing the other day and I was talking to my buddies about this. We're already getting to the point where I feel like I'm not doing anything new with my characters. Like the way that I open crates and I get a bunch of duplicates of cards that I already have. Like we're not going anywhere. So in order for this game to stay interesting and to get some replay value here, especially as a multiplayer game, you need to give us some new maps, some new characters, new heroes. Like they need to be pumping this stuff out quickly.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. So one more thing I want you to talk about is, speaking of that, did you get the Last Jedi DLC for it? Because I believe they put that out.
So
if you did, how was it?
Yeah, so what they're doing is it's all the DLC is free. So instead of a DLC, it actually comes as an update. So you wake up and there's like a 10 gig update for the game that you install.
That's awesome, I guess, yeah.
So the crate map is fucking awesome. They nailed that. The way that it's like, because the Galactic Assault maps go in 3 stages. So the way it starts with all the walkers out there and the ski speeders are zooming around and there's red dust flying everywhere. Like they nailed that. It's like you go see the movie and then you go play that game and it's like you're dropped into the universe, which is great. That's the point of Battlefront in the first place. They did a space battle, which was supposed to be the evacuation from the beginning of The Last Jedi. That one was nothing like the movie. I don't know what the fuck happened. It was like GoldenEye when they made like areas from the movie, but that you barely see in the movie, and then they made a whole level out of it where it didn't really make any fucking sense. It was one of those.
Gotcha, yeah.
And then they added Finn and Captain Phasma as heroes, which were a good choice. Finn's okay. Phasma's awesome. She's probably one of my favorite heroes or villains in the game now.
That's cool.
But
I don't know how it was, but I know it just came out recently and I didn't really hear anything about it. So I figured you were probably checking it out.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's a lot of fun. What we said on the show is for Star Wars fans should definitely get the game and love it for Star Wars and fight through the annoying parts because it's immersive and the sound design is amazing. The graphics are amazing. Character models and ships and everything is really, really good. So for Star Wars fans, it's worth it. For just other gamers that aren't huge on Star Wars, it's probably a hard pass.
Yeah.
At least until they make some big updates.
Exactly. But I just want to get your impression of it. All right, cool. That's all.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Yeah, I mean, it has gotten lit up by people, but
yeah.
I mean, I haven't been following it all that closely. It's not something that I was really going to play, just because I stopped playing multiplayer games a couple of years ago when I got sick of 12-year-olds calling me horrible.
It would be nice to get a single player, man. I don't know what is going on in Star Wars' video game world, but how do we not have a single player? I don't know, a single player RPG of Star Wars. I don't understand.
I would play the hell out of that. Yeah, that would be awesome if I could just if they just put out like a Last Jedi game or something, or something tangential to it even. I could go play as DJ. Well, it's find out how he gets into jail.
That'd be awesome. DJ is awesome. Fun fact. So his nickname stands for "Don't Join."
Really?
So he has that little pin on the top of his cap that's in Arabash. It says "Don't Join," and he says that to Finn. He's like, "Sides don't matter. It's all a racket. Blah blah blah. Don't join." That's where his nickname comes from.
That's great.
Because I heard people complaining about DJ, like that's so silly. It almost sounds like an American nickname. Why would you put that in Star Wars? That's what it comes from. It was in the visual dictionary.
That's cool. That's a good little tidbit for the listeners over here. Yeah, I dig that. So I don't know what else? What other topics have you guys been talking about on your show? Has anything been big or recurring that you guys are mentioning or bringing up?
We love Kylo Ren.
Mm.
He's one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars now. I can't remember exactly who said this. I think we were watching a Stupendous Wave video on YouTube, but Kylo and what he does in 8 by killing Snoke is important because he did something that Darth Vader never did.
Mm-hmm.
Vader only killed the Emperor at the very end to save his son. Kylo killed his master purposefully to take control of the First Order and to get power. And that's something that all throughout, in that 24 or 5 years from episode 3 to episode 6, Vader either can't do it or he never does. I don't know exactly why, but that's one thing that kind of sets Kylo. I don't want to say he's stronger than Vader, but it sets him apart in the fact that he is that ambitious that he killed Snoke and he's the new Supreme Leader Ren, which is fucking awesome.
Yeah, I really like that little twist, and I'm so happy that Snoke isn't going to be the main bad of this entire series. I love that they had Kylo Ren take him out.
Yeah,
almost as a little with a flick of a wrist, just a really cool way to do that. And I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I thought it was great.
So didn't like translates what that actually means when people say they didn't like that. It means they didn't like that they don't know anything more about Snoke.
Yeah.
Because I can't understand any complaints about how that throne room scene went and how the death happened because it was so slick. That was such a sly thing that Star Wars usually culminates in these epic battles. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And to see it go down like that and just with a little twist and then literally he flicks his hand and cuts him in half. I thought that was so badass. So when people aren't liking that part, it's because we don't know enough about Snoke, which I get. That's a complaint, but I don't know. I think we'll get that down the line in some other reference material, or maybe we'll hear some stories about him in 9 or something like that. But the fact that he's out of the picture and Kylo can assume control and be the number one villain, super happy about that.
Yeah, I'm glad. And you know what? In Force Awakens, I wasn't the biggest fan of Adam Driver as Kylo Ren. I think he really cemented it in this one. I thought that he did a great job, and I think he's filling the role a lot better now than he was at first. He's and in a sense he had to like get rid of that mask in order to do it, even though
I love that part.
Yeah, so like one of the big complaints that a lot of people have had and probably still do have with Adam Driver being Kylo Ren is he doesn't look badass at all. Like he just has this like face that doesn't look like it's going to be like a bad guy villain.
Well, now he has a scar, so that helps a little bit.
Yeah,
and he doesn't have that fluffy ass hair from 7.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a little more long and oily, like a Severus Snape kind of thing. It was pretty voluptuous in Force Awakens, so I'm glad that's changed.
That's true. You had to chop a little bit of that off. but yeah, so like, and to an extent, I can see that. I mean, I can look past it, but I know I know what people are talking about. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I know what you mean when you say something like that. And I think that Rian Johnson, along with Adam Driver, in this movie said, well, fuck it. Let's get rid of this mask. We're just going to embrace it, go all in on it. And I think he did a great job on that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I mean, the mask for him symbolizes something. I think that's a big part of the beginning of the movie is when Snoke criticizes him and he smashes that thing. Mm. It's like a stage of, like he has stages of his life. Killing his dad ended one part of, like one memory or one stage of where he came from. And then he's going through this training with Snoke and everything, and smashing that mask ends one stage, and then killing Snoke ends one stage. And then, so it's just him continually, like he says, let the past die. He's just killing off all of these things that are trying to hold him back from being the supreme fucking leader, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think he's going to be pretty badass in the third one. Hopefully he gets a little more control because he's just kind of unhinged at the end of this movie. But
which makes total sense. But yeah, it was a little. I mean, even Hux knows. Like, this guy can't be our supreme leader if he's going to be psychotic the entire time. But I mean, Vader did the same thing. Vader choked his own admirals from across the galaxy. Like, I mean, it's not too far off from what his grandfather was doing.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. I mean, it's just kind of, I mean, and I think he's going to assume that control. Well, like, even while Vader was choking somebody, I mean, Snoke does the same thing to Hux in the beginning of the movie, but they are in control of themselves as they're doing it. Whereas, as of right now, Kylo Ren is like just flashing out and going nuts. But I think he's going to figure that out, and he's going to become kind of a terrifying supreme leader over there for a little while.
I hope so. Well, it's evident that his inability to control his emotions and feelings led to the Resistance escaping, and Luke Skywalker made a fool of him in front of the entire army. So I think that alone is like gonna convince him that he needs to get his shit under control. The problem, or not the problem, the question is like, who's he gonna learn from? Or is he going to have an apprentice? Or is he just going like solo on this shit by himself? Because there's always learning from somebody or teaching somebody.
Yeah.
Or teaching somebody and teaching 14 secret apprentices also. But I'll be curious to know if he like tries to pick up an apprentice to hunt down Rey or something, or if he is seeking out somebody to train him. Maybe we'll see some holocrons in a movie finally.
Let's hope. Let's cross our fingers. But yeah, like I think that would be cool if this next movie was kind of him picking up an apprentice and starting to go that way. I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know if they're going to, because even if there are going to be in a 10, 11, and 12, you need to kind of put an end to this series.
Right.
At least you need to cap it. And I don't know if is this next movie going to have the time that it needs to do something like that?
Well, yeah, even 9 has to cap off the trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Not only, so 9 has at least 2 jobs, right? You have to cap off the trilogy, and you have to make an ending just in case 10, 11, and 12 don't happen. You have to make an ending to the entire series as well.
Right.
And that being said, there's a lot of loose ends at the moment. So are they going to have enough time to like jam in a new plot line about, you know, Kylo picking up a new apprentice and all that type of stuff? I don't know if they can make it work. I mean, I'm sure if it's written well enough, it'll work, you know, but I think that would be cool. And you know, it makes sense as like the next thing is going to happen.
Yeah, I think they'll kill it. I think they're suffering slightly from not having the entire thing planned out. Like, I love the idea of having the different directors doing things, but the fact that they didn't at least have an overarching plot in place before they started, I think it's not going to ruin it, but I think it's obvious that wasn't in place. Well, like, it kind of feels like Rian Johnson is reacting to episode 7, and now JJ has to react to episode 8 instead of them knowing exactly what's going to happen to Luke, or to Rey and to Luke and to Finn and to Poe over the course of 3 movies. Right.
It seems like they're going to just, you know, kill one of the... Well, I guess the problem is they don't have Leia anymore. Are they not even going to put her into the next movie? I think is what they said, right?
I'm pretty sure they already announced that they were never going to CGI her and they were never going to recast her.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they made that clear. So one of the first things that we said when she passed away was that 9's going to start and they're just going to say Princess Leia has died, or General Leia has died, or whatever.
Yeah,
they're just going to cover it in the crawl or something.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think you're right. I think that's what they'll do. But it was interesting. It was good to see her like actually make it out of this movie. I thought she was going to die multiple times.
Well, I mean,
they were just going to change it.
Yeah, that first moment, which like it was pretty early in the movie too, when she got blown out of that bridge. I was like, that's how they did it? What the hell? That can't be it. And then what do you guys think about the Mary Poppins thing? Because that's one of people's big complaints.
I had no issue with it. Like I remember seeing it first. I'm like, oh, that's neat. That's kind of cool. And I moved on like instantly from it. It didn't like bother me, nor did I think it was particularly amazing. I was like, all right, you know, cool enough. And it was there and it's fine. That's pretty much the extent of my opinion on that scene. I don't know. I guess I can see why it's divisive for maybe we'll say harder core fans, but as a more general fan, like it was perfectly fine. And then the rest of the movie happened. So that's pretty much all I can say about it, really.
I think it's execution thing. Like I get the point. Like obviously Leia is this daughter of Vader. Like she has some force ability in there. Whether we know that Luke trained her or not, now that all those old Legends books aren't canon, we don't know. But in a life or death situation, of course she would be able to tap into it. It makes sense. I think it's just the way that moon was shining on her, and those like you could see those rays, and then she assumes that Superman position. It was just a little weird to see on screen. I think that was it.
Like, I get that, but like I said, like just in general, I really had no big issue with it. I thought it was a fine touch, and it was there, and it was okay.
For sure.
I really didn't like it at first. It's grown on me a little bit since then. But like what I was really, the part that I really didn't like was that she has never in like, you know, however old Leia is in canon. She's never shown any ability, anything close to that. And like, it's not like she's never been her life's never been in danger before, you know, like her life was constantly in danger throughout the original trilogy.
Very true. Yeah, that's a good point. I think it was maybe again, all these nods to fans. It was a nod like, motherfucker, she is force sensitive.
Yeah.
So don't doubt the general. So I don't know. It was just, it looked funky as hell.
It did look like a little bit weird, but I like also what people are saying is like she's been like even unknowingly using her, you know, force sensitivity powers like her entire life just like to be a better politician, you know, like just kind of like swaying people, and you know, like because that is an aspect of the force, and like she is, you know, and I think that's a more I can understand her manifesting force powers in that way more so than like flying herself out back into a spaceship from space. But
yeah, but it was do or die. I think that's the way that I apologize for it in my head.
That's and again, like I said, at first I didn't really like it. I'm coming around to it a little bit more now.
I barely noticed it the last time I watched it. I was like, okay,
yeah,
didn't think anything of it.
Yeah,
but
how many times have you seen how many times have you seen it so far?
4.
4? Wow. Going to get anytime soon?
Good question, man. I'm not sure. I do need to see it at least once before it leaves theaters, because who knows when we'll ever see it in theaters again. But I don't have any specific plans.
Well, so like I've only seen it the 2 times, and
better the second time.
What's that?
Better the second time, right?
Yeah, definitely better the second time.
Hell yeah.
Would you say it was better the 4th time than the 3rd?
Yeah, 100%.
So every time it just keeps getting better?
I think there's something with the energy of the theater too. Like, it sounds silly, but like when we saw Force Awakens, as soon as the Lucasfilm logo came up, people were shouting and cheering. And when we saw Last Jedi this time around, like it was just complete silent the entire time. I don't know what it was. Like, I know we had reserved seats with those like lounge seats with the recliners and everything. So people all like when Lucasfilm popped up on the screen, nobody made a sound. And I was like getting ready to like cheer and clap, and it was just dead silent. So I didn't want to do that. I don't know exactly why that happened. So I think something has to do with the energy of the theater that we're in. It just didn't seem as exciting as it did for 7 or for Rogue One too. But yeah, so the first time, plus all the expectations that we went in with, made it a little strange. But yeah, it's better every time.
Nice. Yeah, that is. So like Star Wars is one of the movies where I won't get pissed at people for like cheering and clapping at the beginning of a movie.
Right.
Like, it doesn't, like a lot of movies I'll be like, shut up, I'm trying to watch a movie. But for a movie like this, it has all this like built up over such a long time period. All this nostalgia and like excitement about it. At least at the beginning, like I like to see people like getting into it a little bit too. And you're right, there is something about that energy in the theater when you go and go see something like that.
Yeah, man,
definitely.
Ray's parents.
What's that?
Ray's parents.
Oh, good point. I did mean to bring this up. I had it written down. I completely forgot about it. But what do you think? Because I have my whole theory.
All right, so obviously the first time I was like, great, motherfucking theory didn't come true. I hate this movie. Like, that was my first reaction. So, but I don't hate it. I think it makes sense. It's a lot like Anakin. I think Disney's kind of been stepping on eggshells when it comes to prequels references, and they've been doing more and more of them. And with the mention of Darth Sidious in this movie, and then Rey's parentage, I think it harkens me back to Anakin, where Anakin was a nobody. He was just a little slave orphan. The Skywalker name meant nothing until Anakin was discovered by Qui-Gon and became a Jedi, and amazed everyone with his natural abilities, and was, good at everything. Pod racing at 9, built a droid, built a pod racer. Like, he was a prodigy. But if he hadn't been discovered on this random backwater desert planet, it wouldn't have meant anything. So Rey, to me, is a lot just like Anakin. She's the next chosen one. Now, whether she's randomly immaculate conception like Jesus, that has to be seen. But I think it's cool, the fact that you don't have to be, it's weird. You don't have to be from a popular, powerful family in order to be somebody important. And that's kind of they made that point. That's the whole point of Rey's parents being nobody. Is that you don't have to be a Solo or a Skywalker to be this important. Mm-hmm. But the counter argument that I have to that is that the Skywalker name didn't mean anything until Anakin. And it was just Anakin and then Luke, and that was it. Mm-hmm. So I think she's just a lot like Anakin, which I'm happy with.
So I'm not entirely convinced that her parents are nobody. In that scene where she's talking to Kylo, he makes her tell him what her expectations are, and then he agrees with her. It's not like he tells her, "Oh, your parents were nobody; they were, dirt farmers or whatever." He says, "What do you think?" And then when she answers, that's when he says, "Yeah, sure, you're right." And I think that he might have just agreed with anything that she said there, or spun it, whatever she said, in a way. I think he was digging for a way to pull her over to his side. And
yeah, that's how I took it too. It was, he was trying to break her down at that crucial moment.
Mm-hmm.
So that way she would be emotionally like stranded and more likely to join up with him. So, like I said, I'm not mad that if her parents are nobody, I'm not mad about that. But I think it's about 50-50 that Kylo was talking shit and we're going to get the actual truth about her parents in 9. Because that's one thing, that's the weird thing about this director stuff. Like JJ could interpret that as Kylo made it up and then he could put her parents in 9. And Rian Johnson could never have intended that at all, but it could happen.
Yeah, which is weird. I mean, I think at this point they have to know what the story. I mean, they must have. I'm sure they talk. Like JJ and Rian
well,
Johnson.
Well, of course,
sure,
yeah.
So I'm sure they have that figured out at this point. But you're right. When they started out, Force Awakens, I don't think they had any idea that Rey's parents were going to be nobody at that point. Like I think that's something that got written in later.
Well, part of the build-up. So with the build-up with Snoke and the mystery behind Snoke and everyone's obsessed with Snoke, that one is a lot of stuff that we made up ourselves. Because in 7, he's literally just a hologram.
Yeah.
So everything that is mysterious and like important about him that we kind of created on our own. Rey, on the other hand, gets picked up. She can fly the Falcon. She can speak Wookiee. She understands the droids. And it seems to us like Han and Maz and Leia, they all know who she is. At least that's what it seems. Now, of course, if we go with Ryan's story in 8 about how her parents are nobody, that could just be this girl is really smart on her feet. She can fly the Falcon. She bypassed the compressor. And Han is like amazed that she knows her stuff that well. But when we watch 7 over and over and over again, it just seemed to us like and even Snoke says the scavenger, and Kylo says what girl, like they all seem like they know who this girl on Jakku is.
Yeah. Yeah. It felt like a little bit, it felt like a little bit of a not a cop out, but like it felt like a little, they were trying to flip the script a little bit too much,
Yep.
But again, that could all turn out to be bullshit. And, that could have been his intention the entire time. The way that it's phrased and the way that it goes, especially in a scene that happens right after Kylo Ren tricks someone into believing he's doing something else.
Right. Right.
It's just mind games, at that point. So like he tricks Snoke, maybe he tricks Rey as well in that scene.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, all right. Anything else specifically you wanted to talk about?
I'm trying to think of anything that we missed in the movie. That's the thing too. This is a hard movie to review and talk about because there's a lot that happened. It's very deep. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of scenes. There's a lot of characters.
Yeah.
Yoda. Yeah, Yoda. What do you think about Yoda making a return?
I dug that they brought back the puppet. Yeah, I was happy with that. And he actually has some interesting lines that mean so much more than what he's saying. The subtext of that discussion that he has with Luke is really important.
Yep.
In terms of the movie.
100%.
I love the one line that he says when he says that girl has everything she needs from the library, but he actually means she just stole the fucking books. It's great.
Well, I mean, it has two meanings.
Yeah.
It's both, obviously.
Of course.
Yeah.
The text, the main text of it is that she is able to do what, like everything that she needs. She's not going to learn anything from those books that she doesn't already have. But then the subtext is like you find out later that
he knows that she grabbed the book, so he blows the tree up. So yeah, no, it was cool, man. I liked Yoda. He dropped some knowledge. The page turners line was another cringeworthy moment.
Oh, a little bit.
Hold on. I want to talk about that line because, again, in my analysis / filter, that was like to sort of a rebuke to all the like ancillary like expanded material. Like all those books, like they're not canon and they also weren't written that well. Like maybe that's just me interpreting it that way, but I thought it was funny as hell.
It might be that. I don't know.
I just pointed out. I mentioned it in my like analysis article, but like to me, you can take it like that. I don't know if it was ever intended as such, but I thought it was funny if you think of it in those terms.
Well, that's the whole Star Wars thing, man. From a certain point of view, you can take it a million different ways. So I see what you mean. I mean, yeah, and it makes sense. Like the whole movie's letting go of the past. So stop fucking worrying about those old books about Jason Solo because he doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that was just my like take on that one little scene.
For sure.
That one
oh yeah. No, I just think the line itself was another one of those comedy moments that didn't land.
Yeah,
for me, it just didn't land for me.
But I think that's kind of a mark of like a lot of Star Wars movies. Like they have these moments that are just trying to be like levity.
Yes.
And they don't really work exactly, but then you just move on and like watch the rest of the damn movie.
And that's like the consensus of all Star Wars is like, this is an amazing story with some crazy, awesome, like hero, mythical archetypes and awesome characters, great sets, great directing, blah, 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 whatever you want to say, graphics, everything else. But there's some really dumb shit in all of them. There's tauntauns and that Luke sleeps in a tauntaun. He gets beat up by an abominable snowman. Like they're flying, there's yellow bats flying around. They're stuck inside of a worm's mouth in episode 5. Like there's some dumb shit in every single movie, which I love. The Borg Gullet from Rogue One. Like, are you kidding me? A mind-reading slug? Get that shit out of here. But it's in all of them. So I think that's part of that's par for the course. And we're just hyper focused on it right now because it's the newest one.
Right. I think that every director that touches this at this point, and you know, Lucas in the beginning, I think they just really love to be able to mess with that stuff and like to kind of throw something like that in there. It's almost like the director's version of a dad joke, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh like, yeah.
It's just like, all right, let's do this fun thing because I'll have fun for a day fucking around with this thing. Like, you know, just making this happen.
I mean, and I've heard a lot of people say that the comedy hit on all levels for them, for every single joke and all that stuff. The Porgs were great. The lightsaber, the Poe and Hux bantering back and forth. Like, they loved all of it. So, I mean, I guess it's to each his own on that also.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of it worked, some of it didn't for me. I didn't mind the Porgs as much as I thought I was going to, actually.
100%. Man, I tell you what, I hated the Porgs before the movie came out because there was so much hype about them and people were getting like plush dolls and fucking pins and hats and everything Porg. I was like, get this shit out of here. I want to see Kylo Ren kill things. But when it came to it in the movie, I thought they were there, little creatures. They didn't like save the day like the Ewoks, so everything was all good. Right.
Yeah, and they were just in a couple scenes. They were like cute little funny guys, and that was it. They didn't they never tried to like, you know, Rian Johnson never tried to make him steal a scene.
Of course.
Like he was, you know, one of them's the biggest thing they did was one of them was on the dashboard or whatever, and Chewie knocks him off.
Yep. Yeah.
That's it.
Speaking of stealing scenes, BB-8 went a little too far in this movie, if you ask me.
You think?
Yes. I think shooting the coins at the guards on Canto Bight like a machine gun.
Yeah, fair enough.
As I was going through the movie, I got to that one. I was like, I can forgive it. And then he stole a fucking ATST. Yes. And I was like, get out of here. No fucking way. That's so dumb.
Thank you.
My thoughts was actually,
the coin thing was fine. It was an okay like moment, but then he rose up in 18. Like, what the fuck? That you can't have that. That was the thing I disliked the most from Last Jedi, and I liked it a lot overall. But I'm glad you brought that point up because that was the thing that stuck with me. I'm like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah, but man. Because I really loved BB-8, and when he does save the day, it's awesome because he's just this little droid. I mean, just like R2 back in the prequels and the OT, but there's obviously a limit, just like the comedy. There's a limit to that. Just like
Oh yeah.
Ryan using the movie to tell fans to calm down about theories in the past and everything. Like there's a limit to doing all those. I think they pushed the limit and then crossed it just, a few too many times throughout the movie is my only complaint. Before I said BB-8, I was going to say something else.
I think, I got at least one more thing that I want to mention. And that's the scene where Holdo turns the ship around and blasts right through. That, if we're talking about like a few things that bugged us, that thing was awesome. That was so fucking cool.
Beautiful.
Although I wish he had done it earlier.
I wish she wasn't there at all and there was Admiral Akbar.
Fair enough.
That's what I wish. But not everyone knows who Akbar is, so it's okay. R.I.P. Akbar. It's a wrap. Yeah, I shouldn't say I like Holdo's character more every time. I should say I don't hate Holdo's character as much every time I watch it. She's more and more tolerable. Too. Yeah, she's more and more tolerable. It's weird to bring a character in and then we have to care so much about her to make her sacrifice that worthwhile. Because that scene for me right now isn't about Holdo sacrificing herself. It's about, that's one of the coolest shots in movies that I've ever seen, ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like to get a new character into a movie, have us care that much about her for her sacrifice to bring us to some emotional point. It just didn't get there because she's brand new. And she wasn't in the movie. I mean, I know she was the main character, but there's a lot of stuff happening. She wasn't on screen that much. So I don't know. It would have been even if it was Leia that did that, I thought that would have been pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And she had some emotional chat with Poe before she went into the cockpit or onto the bridge. I don't know. I think we could have done without Holdo altogether, personally.
I kind of agree. And I know, I wish that if they were going to insist on having her, which she could be a fine character in the same way that, I always forget her name, the stormtrooper. What is her name?
Her name, the stormtrooper? What are we talking about?
Phasma.
Oh, yeah.
In the same way that Phasma could be a good character, but
how about they ruined
don't
one
get
of my
screen time?
They ruined her again. I'm so mad.
They did the same exact thing 2 movies in a row.
I don't know how. I don't know, dude. I don't know how that got past the producers or whoever's in charge of making the final approval. I don't know how that passed anyone's desk without getting pulled. That was just egregious.
Just pissed at her, the actress. I feel like somebody just pissed at her, but they have a contract that she has to be in the movie.
That might be it. Movies. Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, back to Holdo for a minute. Laura Dern is a great actress, and she could definitely run that. Be really good in that role. But she just didn't have the screen time and didn't have the character development to do it. So you're right. That scene was where she sacrificed herself was awesome, but I didn't really care about her dying.
Right.
I cared about how cool that scene was.
Of course.
And and how it stopped, how they at least blasted that ship, into a billion pieces.
If she was part of the Resistance Council on that base in episode 7, even if she didn't have that many lines, if she was just there, one of those members that was planning to go attack Starkiller Base, so we at least have some reference to who she is. So yeah, I don't know. I don't hate it. It's like Rose. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm indifferent about it, but a lot of people are like, Holdo was perfect, or she shouldn't have been in the movie at all.
Yeah. I'm kind of on your wavelength on this one. I don't hate it or love it. She was there, and that's perhaps even more damning about that character, though. That's a character that we should love because of how close she is with Leia and all the shit that she goes through with Poe, and there just needed to be a more meaty part for her to dig into, I think. To make that character.
Well, and then we see at the end when they're putting Poe on the transport, we see that all along she had Poe's best interest in mind.
Right.
She's just being a hard ass on him because she's the admiral and he needs to fucking pay attention, which I get. It's just there wasn't enough of that. I don't know. Now that I think about it, I don't actually hate it. I don't know. Yeah. I gotta see it again. There's too much, man. There's too much stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Just go check it out again.
Yeah.
But definitely I think that if she was just straight up with Poe from the beginning, though, most of this movie is avoided. Most of the bad things that happen in this movie are avoided.
Well, that's a complaint about that. Like if she just said the plan from up front, that would have shaved 45 minutes off the movie, which would have defeated the purpose of Rose and Finn going together, and it wouldn't have let Poe grow as like a leader. So we needed that. I just think it was a little bit lazy.
Yes. Yeah. I mean that describes it pretty well. Like her being the as high up in the power structure as she is, she needs to know one of her. What was he, a commander at that point, or
Poe?
Whatever he was. Yeah. And then he got demoted.
He got commander, and then he got demoted back to captain. Yeah.
Anyway, one of her best captains or commanders or whatever.
Yeah.
And how much power he has with the crew, like that is something she needs to know. If you're gonna like shut this guy out, you need to know that he might mutiny.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I thought that was kind of like you said, just a lazy choice of a way to do it.
Yeah.
And kind of demotes her a little bit in terms of like being how good of a commander she can be of like a crew, unfortunately.
Yeah, I really would have loved to see Admiral Akbar up in the action.
That would have been cool.
All right. I think we talked about this, but I'll just jump in to suggest that it would have been cool if it was him, and then he says, "This time we're the threat," and then he flies the fucking thing.
That's like an Expendables type of line that you'd see.
Yeah. That was just my idea when we were discussing that, like that little moment, and specifically him and how he ended up leaving the series, I suppose. But I thought that would have been a nice touch if they had him like call back to that one final time or something.
That would have been at least pretty funny, I think. Perhaps one of the better jokes of the movie. Maybe at the wrong time as he's flying his ship into fucking into doom. But anyway, we're a little bit over an hour, I think. So that's probably about where we should. That's about this length of our podcast. I know you guys usually go a bit longer, but
until the beer's gone.
I'm gonna wrap this down. I mean,
for sure, man.
I'll chill and BS with you for as long as you want. But I think as far as the episode, we're gonna call it. So
sweet.
I've been Steve Ramosi again. I'm here with Commander Cody Boyce. And again, you can. Well, do you want to give your shout outs on where everybody can find you?
Oh, so, for sure. Yeah. So if you like having some beer and watching some Star Wars, you can check us out, Rogue Squadron Podcast. RogueSquadronPodcast.com, obviously, and then all of our social media stuff is Rogue Squad Pod, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're pretty much all over the place. So,
yeah, all right, sounds good.
Everywhere in the galaxy.
And we've also been joined at points today by Scott Thurlow. So I want to give him a shout.
Just my word, just the words of my name, not actually me.
Right. And
thanks for being on, Cody. As always,
of course, man.
Good talking to you.
Of course.
So yeah, I appreciate you joining us at the Lost Signals, and we're gonna cut this off right here. So everybody have a good night,
Sweet.
And we'll see you later.
This has been On the Horn with Steve-O. Editing by Stephen Ramosi. Music by Christopher Morgan. And I'll talk to you next time.